Welcome to Recovery His Way. I'm your host, Tom Reynolds, and we're glad to have you join us today. Today we have Jordan Blackburn with us. Jordan is a graduate of our program. He continues to work in the program here as one of our resident house managers and provides a lot of leadership around here and has for a long time. And I know, Jordan, we've known each other a long time. I've loved getting to know you and your story. And as we get into this story about this second step about coming to believe, I thought it would be important for our folks listening and watching to kind of just get a background of your story. I mean, I know your story to some degree. Obviously, you know your story very well. I'd like for you to kind of maybe share with us kind of your story and what brought you to where you're at today.
Okay. Yeah. And by the way, I have enjoyed being here. It's been great for me, and I can't express gratitude enough. But my name is Jordan Blackburn. I am 38 years old. I've been here at His Way as a resident and a house manager for about three years.
Wow.
A little over 3 years.
Okay.
So I got here in November of 2018.
Okay.
And I graduated as a resident in December of 2019.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm from Jackson, Mississippi originally. I was born and raised there. You know, I came from, a middle-class family. I had a good upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Both my parents were accountants. You know, they probably worked a little too hard, but, they were loving, and I had a pretty good childhood. And I had an older brother, and it was just me and him and my parents, of course. And went to a private school. I went to church until I was about 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
I was Episcopalian.
Okay.
And went there long enough to be confirmed and
Okay.
all that good stuff. But somehow I think my parents' jobs and things like that, they kind of got in the way, and Sundays became work day for them.
Right.
So, and I only say that because it probably is important later.
Sure.
And long story short, I had my first drink when I was about 13 or 14.
Why did you have your first drink? Tell me about that first drink.
Well, I mean, I forgot to mention, my parents working a lot. Me and my brother were left alone a lot. So my brother was usually the one that got us into trouble, but he was the one who introduced me to drinking, and I'm not blaming him by any means, but that was how that came about.
That's not unusual, right? Older siblings
sure.
have that influence.
And I remember it specifically. It was one of those times where I was like, this is it. I definitely liked it way too much, and it became...
What did you drink the first time?
It was Southpaw.
Okay.
Southpaw was a beer.
Okay.
And I think I had like maybe 4 or 5 of them, but that was enough.
Right.
That was 13, 14.
Yeah,
something.
sure. That's huge.
Yeah. And
so it immediately triggered something for you. You knew that this was something magical.
Yeah, because I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, I always had a feeling of kind of being different.
Okay.
Just kind of uncomfortable in my own skin type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had that my whole life. And that I did experience a little sexual abuse when I was, younger. So that is something I don't like to talk about, but that's, it's there.
Right.
It's definitely part of my life and what's happened thus far.
Absolutely.
And that could be part of why it made me feel so comfortable in my own skin, I guess, just drinking but what can you say? But off we went, and I continued to do well in high school and throughout, academically.
You graduated high school.
Graduated high school.
Okay.
Got the diploma, went to Ole Miss, and then things started taking a turn for the worse. I mean, that's the long story short right there in that time period.
So you got to school, you kind of outside your parents' supervision, and then kind of party became more important than school? Yeah,
and it was one of those things where the first year went okay, and then I realized that I'm not beholden to anybody anymore. Like, I can do what I want. I don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, it probably got to where I was even more uncomfortable with myself in that setting. Even though I was like in a fraternity and all that kind of stuff, that didn't help either. Lots of things. But any addict will tell you it gets worse. It snowballs. And it did. And basically,
Let me ask. The story of a lot of people going to college is partying, fraternities, a lot of wild times. That's different than alcoholic. When do you think you realized that you were not just a college student having fun at school versus this has become a serious problem?
I don't know if this is hindsight, somehow knowing what I know now, but I always knew something was going on. I always knew that I liked it a little too much. And I always would wonder, what I'm going to be, it was one of those things where I always thought, this is not going to go well. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I was thinking those things. You never know for sure, looking back, but I think I always knew it was a problem because it became an every weekend thing, and then it became an every night thing, and then, gradually, like I said, snowballs. But I always knew it. I think from an early, probably while I was still in high school, and if we didn't have booze on the weekends, I wasn't happy,
Did your parents know that you were drinking during this time?
They figured it out, but they didn't really say anything. I don't know if they didn't want to admit it or if they did the same thing when they were kids. Who knows? I mean, I never talked to them about that. But
And it's a challenging thing for parents. I mean, because on one hand, you kind of want it, that they're having trouble, and at the same time, well, they're teenagers, they're kids, they're going through their deal. How do you kind of stay engaged, not be overly smothering? What that dynamic is can be difficult for any parent.
Sure. And I mean, there's a couple instances where they did try to intervene, ground me or whatever. But for the most part, they were pretty lenient parents. I don't think they had the time. I don't want to sound like I'm bad-mouthing my parents because they were great. I just, I got away with a lot of stuff, I guess.
You were the younger one too, right?
Yeah,
the younger one always
exactly.
gets away with a little more.
Exactly.
You're in college. I mean, did you graduate college? How did the college drinking thing go?
No. So, well, first of all, did I mention I was at Ole Miss? That's where
Yes.
I was. Okay, that's one of the top party schools in the United States, I believe.
Has a good reputation for that.
It does. And, like I said,
you have the cocktail parties before the game, right?
Sure.
Right.
After the first, I was majoring in chemical engineering. So I wanted to be, an engineer from as far back as I can remember, but you can't juggle those two things. So the stress of school and stress of having probably this undiagnosed social anxiety disorder, all sorts of things, just made it worse. But somehow I ended up riding it out for 5 years, never graduating. So I stayed at Ole Miss, basically drinking myself into a deeper, physiological addiction is what it was.
So what ended your college career?
My parents realized what was going on. I mean, when your, grades are gradually dropping to the point of buckshot almost, they came up there and got me. I mean, they said that's enough is enough. We know something's going on. But, I don't know if this happens with other families, but when I went home, the situation just got worse because, they're enabling me in the first place, and they've admitted this one instance that they know something's up, but they're not doing anything about it. So, I'm back in Jackson. I'm living with my parents. I don't have a degree, and I just got this massive. Not only am I an alcoholic now, I was pretty full blown at this point. But I've got this failure hanging over me.
Right.
So
you're working in Jackson at that point?
Yeah, and I had a job at an insurance company, and that is kind of one of the things I'm ashamed of because at this point also I'm drinking during the day. I mean, I'm getting up in the morning and I'm still going, and I mean it's really bad. I mean, some alcoholics are or they'll binge drink at night or all week, but it's always after 5 o'clock. I was 24/7. I mean, I'd wake up needing a drink.
Right.
So, I mean, I was dying basically.
Right. I mean, alcoholism does that, right? It starts with you kind of controlling it, and it eventually controls you.
Yeah.
And after you're not drinking to feel good, it's no longer a party thing. It's like, how do I make it to work? I need to have a drink just so I can get out of bed, right?
Yeah, and the problem, exactly, but the problem is that I had just enablers all around me. I mean, nobody would come to me and say, we know something. And when it was obvious something was going on, we know something's going on. You smell like booze. I successfully, I don't know if success is a good word, pulled this off for 8 years, working at the same job until, I'm not going to go into that. I lost it.
Right.
And that's how a lot of these stories go, I think. But that's when the rehab started.
Okay.
I guess. And
what pushed rehab? Was it a decision you made? Was it a decision your parents made? Did you get some legal issues that pushed you into that? How did that come
Not
about?
at all. It was basically losing my job, and my parents just gave me an ultimatum. I'm still living there, and that they're saying you're gonna live on the streets if you don't go to rehab. So I did it, but with the full intention at the first time to keep. I mean, I wasn't gonna follow through with it. I was gonna go and get it done and do the same thing all over again because I just was not in a headspace at that point to change.
So what got you to the headspace to change?
Well, okay. Well, after 2 more rehabs, 2 more inpatient rehabs, and 2 outpatients, and 2 more lost jobs, and almost dying twice. I mean, what can you expect?
Dying from physical things or accidents, or what was
my liver was
okay
in failure multiple times.
Okay.
I mean, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks at one point. I mean,
Wow. And you're how old at this point?
I was 32.
32 and having liver failure.
Yes.
Wow.
When they told me I couldn't. I think they said I needed to have my gallbladder out or something, but they couldn't put me under because my liver would fail. I mean, it was bad.
Okay.
And I need to emphasize this as well, is that when I got back from college and I moved back in with my parents, my mom started having issues with her heart. They didn't know exactly what was going on, but that gradually became a bigger issue over time. And I need to emphasize that for, what I want to talk about later.
Okay.
But back to where I was, they eventually my parents just threw in the towel. At this point, when I lost my 3rd job, they said, they knew about His Way through Andrew Kruger, and some other people had told them about it.
Some people from Jackson.
Yeah, and I'm skipping over the religious stuff, but I'd always had a problem, as you know, with Christianity and just organized religion in general. I don't know what happened necessarily that put me off of it so much that I would not put up, I just wouldn't deal with it, or be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But they wanted me to come to His Way before I even, before I came.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't do it.
Why would you not do it?
Something about the Christianity thing.
Okay, so you knew it was Christian and you just didn't want to get engaged with that.
Yeah, and I was just so down on it. I just didn't want to associate with it whatsoever. I mean, I can't really emphasize that enough. I mean, I was just completely against it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I did compromise with them, and I said, I'll go to Huntsville. Basically, they wanted me out of Jackson because I had burned all my bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you expect when you're doing stuff, I mean, it just wasn't good.
Right.
And so I agreed to come to Huntsville, and I went to a place called Stepping Stones.
Okay.
And
so you didn't want to go, you were agreeing to get out of Jackson, go to Huntsville, but not all the way to His Way, just go to a stepping stone toward His Way.
I was agreeing to banishment, yeah.
Okay.
But not here. So,
I'll be willing to be banished, just not to something Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a little ridiculous, but
No, I got you.
And so I went there, and about 3 weeks into that, I decided I was just going to go, use again, drink again, and did that and fell asleep in a parking lot because I couldn't go back there like that, and woke up to a Huntsville Police Department officer knocking on my window, and went to jail here at the nice Blue Roof Inn, and
Is that your first jail experience?
that was
okay.
that was a very harrowing experience. I mean, just something I don't want to have to go through again.
Sure.
But also something that I'm grateful that I had to go through, if that makes any sense.
Well, why are you grateful for it?
Because because if I hadn't, I don't know if I'd be here right now.
Okay.
I mean, it was just I questioned sometimes whether I was already in hell. I mean, it was just a miserable experience, especially for a guy like me who's so introverted and stuff like that, I could barely hold a conversation with somebody. I mean, it just was not a good experience. But anyway, on top of that, like I was talking about my mom, I didn't know this at the time, but her heart condition had gotten worse. And while I was there, she was getting surgery on to get a heart valve replacement, and she ended up passing away on the operating table.
Wow.
So I had to get that news there as well.
Oh, wow.
About 3 months into the 6.5 months I was there. And that was something that, I can't describe. I mean, It was a horrible experience.
How old was your mother?
She was 62, sorry.
That's okay.
And, the thing that gets me is that she had been gone for about 2 weeks by the time I found out about it. So it was very upsetting, but it should, like it should be. But anyway, I got through my time there. I contacted my dad. I got through that experience, and I decided I had to do something. I mean, I wish I could expound on this a little bit and tell you how I decided, but I mean, it was just kind of an epiphany. I'm going to die if I don't change. I mean, and what would my mom want now that she's gone? I mean, did I kill my mom? I mean, it was a lot of things that happened inside.
Right.
That kind of got me here, finally. And
did you come here on your own? I mean, were you?
Yes.
Okay.
But then the judge found out about it and made it mandatory. That's another story. She took that away from me, kind of, but that's okay. She did some good things for me in the long run.
So as you come into His Way now, you're coming into this Christian program. You've kind of been, in a sense, boxed into a point that you kind of come to the realization, if I don't do this, I'm going to die. What did you experience when you came here?
The complete opposite of what I expected. I mean, well, first of all, I had been in Madison County Jail for 6.5 months. I mean, I was grateful to be anywhere else. But the patience and the acceptance and it was exactly the opposite of what I had thought initially when I was asked to come here the first time. So it was a little humbling. I felt kind of ashamed of myself. I mean, because I thought for some reason I had it in my head that Christians are only out to convert you and stuff like that. And that's just not true, and I just didn't know what I was, at the time. So, I mean, that's another long story, but that I don't want to get in tangents about, but, I mean, I had a great experience as a resident. I got that structure back. I got, my communication back, I guess, within reason. and I mean, I just became part of the world again, I guess. And it just kind of, I mean, I appreciated, the entire experience of being a resident. And, like I said, I've been here in the leadership role for another 2 years. But,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, so you come in, you experience structure, which you had come from two accountants, right, who are probably pretty structured. I mean, you probably came from a fairly structured family,
Yeah.
as it was. So what's what you were accustomed to. So you come into that, you start feeling like you're getting your legs back underneath you again, starting to move in direction. You got a job of some kind. What kind of job did you get when you were originally?
Oh, I worked at the thrift store in general merchandise, and that was great. But I also
Now we require you to have at least 5 years of Ole Miss in order to be at the thrift
yes,
store.
apparently, yeah. So I was qualified. But I forgot to mention that what this place has enabled me to do is I finally went back to school at University of Alabama in Huntsville and finished my engineering degree.
Fantastic.
In industrial and systems engineering.
When did you graduate?
May of this year, or last year, excuse me.
Okay.
I keep forgetting it's 2022.
That's great.
Yeah, and I'm currently working on a master's at Syracuse.
Okay.
So, that's something I'm massively grateful for every day.
Right. Yeah, you've done a great job taking advantage of this opportunity and translating it into something, I think, with a lot of opportunity in your future, which is fantastic. I mean, something you were trying to do for 5 years, right, at Ole Miss, you've accomplished in a very short period of time here.
Sure.
Clean and sober and those kind of things.
And like I said, it was that massive kind of weight of failure that kind of lifted off me a little bit.
Right.
I mean, a job would be nice in the engineering field about now, but that's something, I'm still grateful.
Well, I want to mention one thing I want you to talk about a little bit. So when you graduated from UAH, I think the guys here wanted to do something for you to kind of honor your graduation, right? Tell what happened there.
So, I mean, I was coming, COVID had prevented us from walking, and my dad had always wanted to see me walk for a college graduation. And I remember him saying that when I was at Ole Miss. But one Sunday, I think it was May the 5th of 2021, I just finished school, obviously, and came to a graduation for the residents here, just expecting to watch a graduation. And, Matt Norman, I believe he's another house manager, and you and I guess Doug had organized my father and my brother. Well, my brother came all the way from Colorado, and my dad came from Jackson, and they had a little graduation ceremony for me. It was very, it was embarrassing, but it was great because I just don't like unexpected situations, but it's quite an experience. It was great.
I can say it's probably one of my favorite graduations and events that we've ever had his way. We've had weddings, we've had engagements, we've had a lot of things, but seeing the shock on your face, and I know the resistance you have typically to those kind of things, and yet the gratitude you felt for the same thing all combined together was a blessing to this whole house.
Yeah, I hope I showed that enough.
You did.
Okay.
You did. You were awesome. That was great and real special. Well, I want to get back to our point for a second. So I know that you've mentioned that this belief and how you saw Christianity, you had some exposure to it early on in your life, but then because of your family dynamic and just everything kind of got away from it. And then you developed obviously some pretty strong negative feelings about Christianity and what your impressions were of it. So you come into this Christian place and you start experiencing, as you said, the opposite of what you expected. So this step that we're talking about came to believe that power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Mm-hmm. So it's been very much a part of your journey, this coming to believe.
Yep.
And so I'm interested in, as you came here and started experiencing this, what did you come to believe? How did you come to believe it? What were the things that kind of helped you come to believe? Just tell us maybe a little bit about just what your belief process has been for you.
Okay. Well, I remember all from when I was like 6 years old. I remember questioning God when I was really young. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I asked myself, does God go on vacation or something like that? And that kind of seed just started something. I don't know what. Mm-hmm. But, and I think I was exposed to the world, like the news and people and the bad parts of things too early or something. Mm-hmm. Because I just got down on religion somehow. Mm-hmm. I didn't I couldn't reconcile how people could be treating each other, because I was a very sensitive kid.
Right. Right.
I mean, I still am, but I kind of hide that. But I couldn't reconcile how people could treat each other one way and say they were Christians, or the way I perceived it, or what I was seeing.
Right.
And I just carried that with me, and it gave me this complex of where I didn't believe anything. I mean, especially while I was deep into the alcoholism. I mean, I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in Jesus. I didn't believe any of that happened. We're not going anywhere when we die. You know, it was atheism. I mean, at its finest. It's probably nihilism. And you know, there's a certain point where you have to be forced to do certain things for you to open your eyes, or certain things have to happen to you that create that epiphany that, you know, maybe you're wrong. You know, I don't, and I've been honest with people, I don't necessarily feel comfortable now calling myself a Christian at this moment, but I definitely believe more than what I used to believe, and that is that, you know, there is a God. I don't know exactly what that is. You know, hopefully down the line in my life, I can give that more definition, like other people, like Christians can. And I believe Jesus was a real person. I believe all the fundamentals of the Bible are great, you know, teaching tools and all that. But there's something in me that won't. The reason I can't call myself a Christian is because, still, is because I'm kind of ashamed. I can't reconcile going somewhere when I die. I don't think that's the point of life. I think that's kind of cheapens it. I think the whole point of life is that it's finite, and that's what makes it so great. I mean, that's what makes it special. And I mean, that might sound a little.
Well, how did you? I mean, you went from nihilism to what you're saying now. What process is that?
I mean, do you want me to go through 3 years of just seeing that people? I mean, it's. I think it has a lot to do. I can't put my finger on it, but it has a lot to do with seeing that people aren't all bad. You know, that there's good people, and that you know, how do I?
Well, I think it emphasizes something I just want to kind of mention here is that I think a lot of times when we think of belief, we think of an intellectual kind of reconciliation of these ideas, whether it's read the Bible and come to believe this, or read religious books, or rationalize all this stuff together. But that the reality is a lot of our beliefs come through our experience. They become the interpretation of our experience. So if we've had negative experiences, we become cynical. We start kind of seeing through life through that lens. You talked about coming here and experiencing kind of a complete reversal of that idea, where people were behaving somewhat differently. I'd like you to go more into that, but and so that began to kind of recreate a different belief system, because you were seeing, you know, a different perspective, a different worldview through the experience of other people and their behavior, their life, and a culture that was revealing something different.
It's a matter of it was a matter of regaining that trust that I don't know where I lost. I mean, maybe it was the sexual abuse. I don't know where that happened, to where I had such negative experiences that I lost trust in people. If you don't have trust in people, how are you going to, or you don't believe in people, how are you going to believe in God? You know, and it, I mean, that's where that started. And when you get here, you see, you know, the kindness of others. I mean, where do I begin? I mean, donation, people coming here every Sunday to feed us. People bringing blank. I mean, just all over the place. I mean, and the other facet of that is being able to give back to other people. And it was easy to show kindness that I was so afraid to show. You know, that was a weakness where I went. You know, where I came from. I mean, does that make sense?
Sure.
So I think that just kind of opened my doors up a little bit, and that's gradually just gotten better and better, and I'm more willing, and I became more willing. I mean, I think I'm all the way willing now. I'm just saying, it's just that's how that started changing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I love the parallel that you make, because I think a lot of people miss this, and I think you've identified something really significant. Trust and belief are basically the same concept, and what you're kind of identifying, I think, profoundly so. A lot of times, as children, whatever our experiences are, somewhere trust gets violated. And so at the core of our being, we're distrusting, whether it's distrusting of people, distrusting of a God who would allow people to do whatever it is. And to come to a new trust. I mean, and that what you've done is you've come into a community of people who have behaved differently. And so it's caused through those experiences to kind of rebuild a trust that then galvanizes a belief system that becomes different.
Yes.
And I think that's profoundly transformative. And so I appreciate you sharing that, and that it's created then this new platform by which you're more open to the possibility of so many things in your life that you would have never been open to before.
Exactly. And that's why I have trouble emphasizing that. It's not that I'm completely where I'm going to be in my belief system. I'm still growing, for sure.
Right.
And I kind of get upset about that, because I feel like I'm being judged, like I was judging Christians. Like that if I don't believe something, I can't admit something that I don't. I mean, I'm not going to do that, because that would compromise my recovery if I'm not honest with myself about everything. So, that's a little bit of why I can't really articulate that.
Well, and I think, this step says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore sanity. It doesn't say, came to believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. It says, I came to believe that a power greater than myself can restore sanity. And everything you've told me is that you believe that there's a power greater than yourself.
Yes. And that took me forever. And I'm sorry I skipped over this, but, there's two sides of this. If you go to an AA meeting, usually they're going to tell you not to involve organized religion in your conversation. If Jesus comes up, you're going to offend somebody. I mean, at least that's the way it was in Jackson when I was trying to go to meetings. But, when you come here, and not that people aren't, there are some people who you feel are judging you when you can't admit that, when you can't say, like, I do believe what you believe. So, sorry. And that can be kind of difficult. But, it's something that I'm growing in.
Right. So I want to capture the last statement of this, and I'm interested in your observations. So came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Share with me your sanity. I want to hear what sanity sounds like for Jordan Blackburn.
Well, you'd have to compare it to what it was before.
Okay.
Because I don't want to say I'm still insane, but
well, I know some of your friends would.
Yes, probably. But I mean, from going from a nihilist to believing that you're not in control. I mean, believing that I was in control of every facet of my life, that's insane. I mean, I think it is. I don't know if everybody would agree, but that's what I was doing, and that's why I was in such a bad way. Right. So when you do accept that you're not in control, that's the most important part, I think, or one of the most important parts of this step and the whole 12 steps, is that you're not in control. Right. And if you can't give some of that over, then that's not going to be good, which is where I was failing so many times before, and then what I learned here. But I mean, I know that doesn't really answer your question about the sanity. I mean, but I think it kind of does to me.
I think it does. I mean, okay. I think in the sense that, let me go back and connect some dots that you're mentioning here, because I think they're significant. When you went through whatever abuses and damage you went through early in life, you had to resolve some things about that. Either you were victimized by somebody more powerful than you, or you were responsible for having allowed that to happen to you because you were not successfully controlling your life. Exactly. So therefore, I have to seize greater control. And so you become less trusting of external supports, whether it be God, people, adults, whatever. I got to manage this myself, right? And then you kind of pursue that until here you are 5 years at Ole Miss, drinking yourself into liver failure.
Yes.
And you realize, I'm trying to control this and I cannot control it. I can't do it. And that ultimately drives you to reach out to something else. And then I think this process that you've gone through here has been a process of coming to believe that there's a power greater than yourself. And I think that's sanity, when I begin to relinquish that need to control all this myself and begin to just want to admit my powerlessness, and then to trust that there's somebody, something else that does have this power. That creates sanity, because it takes the pressure off. It puts me in a proper place. It gives me a platform in which to engage life that is smooth, that's level, that's coherent, and that gives me an opportunity of peace and of reconciling a tremendous amount of my life back together in a positive way.
I appreciate you articulating that for me. I couldn't do that, but that's exactly pretty much what I wanted to say. But it's also what I forgot is that before I was unhappy. That's a big part of sanity. Mental illness is depression.
Right.
So, I was depressed.
Right.
And now, all I can say is that I'm not now. Some people might argue that I am, but I'm not.
Right.
I'm very, very happy where I am and where I'm might be going, and what could happen from now on if I keep doing what I'm doing and keep helping people. And
so sanity is relinquishing control.
Exactly.
Sanity is happiness. Sanity is creating a platform in which I begin to achieve things that I've been trying to achieve for years but never could do, based on the platform I had built in my life, because I couldn't do it. And so sanity became that platform by which you finish college, in which you're working on a master's degree. And those kind of things all become a part of the sanity that this belief has created for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. Okay. I couldn't say it in so many words, but that's pretty much what I'm talking about.
Well, I think your story is an amazing story. I appreciate you. I love you. I've always enjoyed having you. I've enjoyed our conversation today, all the conversation we had, because I know that you always speak as honestly as you possibly can. You're not going to put out garbage. You're not going to, give people what you think they want to hear. You're going to give them what's truly Jordan. And I appreciate that.
I try, and I appreciate that, Tom, and I appreciate everything this place has done for me so much.
Well, I appreciate what you've done for us. You've done a tremendous amount. You've been a great example of these guys. You provide great leadership around here. And I don't know how long God's going to keep you here, but I think however long it will be the perfect time.
Yeah, I hope so.
Jordan, thanks for sharing with us today. And I thank you for listening and watching Recovery His Way. If you'd like to know more about our program and the process of recovery, you can check out our website at hiswayinc.org.